Hi, I'm Sandseter and I will give you a short presentation about outdoor risky play. I have been doing research on children's outdoor risky play for many years now, and I have especially been interested in children's own experiences of risky play, and also why risky play could have benefits for children. So this will be a very, very short resume of some of that research. When I talk about risky play, I have been focusing on the one kind of risk. I know that there are many kinds of risk, such as economic risk and psychological risk, emotional risk, and things like that. But in my research, I've been focusing on the more physical forms of risk. The reason for that is, one, that I come from the physical education and sport science field. So I have been interested in how children are allowed to use their bodies, and also because the fear of injuries have been one of the most important reasons for why we have kind of developed safety-focused society and a way to handle children's play in terms of the fear of them getting injured while playing. So when I talk about risky play, the physical risk is in focus. So when I try to define risky play, I define it as a play that involves thrilling and exciting forms of physical play, as I said, and that it involves uncertainty for the one that plays, but that it also includes a chance for physical injury if something goes wrong. And this is a complex definition because it both have the focus of the ones who are playing, who are experiencing thrill and excitement, and also exploring the uncertainty in play, while it also focuses on what would be parents and early childhood practitioners most, that they would worry most about, that the children would be able to hurt themselves physically. So this definition includes both the one who's playing and the caretaker. So through my research, I have been observing children from 3 to 6 year old and also interviewing 4 to 5 year olds about risky play, or what is risky play. So the set out on my research was to try to find out what is risky play. And through all of these data collections, I ended up with 6 categories of risky play. And these categories are somewhat and sometimes overlapping, but they are a tool to do more research and to understand more what to look for in children's play when you're researching risky play. So one category is great heights, where children climb or jump from still or flexible surfaces. They are balancing on high objects, hanging and swinging at great heights. Everything that goes on up in the air in a way, where there is a danger from falling. So that's the risk that adults usually are afraid of. Danger from falling and hurting themselves by falling. The second category is high speeds. That would be play where children have uncontrolled speed and that the pace is so high that it could lead into collision with something, or maybe someone, another child or an adult, if something goes wrong. And that would be things like swinging at high speed, sliding and sledging at high speed, running uncontrollably at high speed, bicycling at high speed, skating and skiing. At least in Norway we do that. Everything that has a high speed. The next category is dangerous tools. So that would be children playing or handling tools that could lead to injuries or wounds, like cutting tools such as knives, saws, axes, or strangling tools like ropes, Also hammer and nails could be included. So children using tools that eventually could lead to some injury. The fourth one is dangerous elements. So that would be play or situations where children play near something that could be dangerous, such as a cliff or deep water, or in the winter, at least in Norway, icy water, fire pits, things like that. And it's usually situations where children are doing some maybe wild, and they're very immersed in a very kind of wild, maybe some chasing game or something like that, close to something that could be dangerous. This is a category that the practitioners and the preschool teachers were most worried about, while the children didn't think that much about it. And maybe that was the reason why the adults thought it was risky, because children were so engaged in the play that they weren't aware of the dangerous elements that they were playing alongside. Then the next category was rough and tumble play. So that would be a very familiar category for people that are within play research and play theory. It's play fighting, wrestling, fencing with sticks, rough and tumbling, roughhousing, where children are actually testing out their bodies against each other and their strengths against each other. So that would be the main aim of that play is not to harm each other, but eventually it happens. Then the last category was play where children can disappear or get lost. So where the children went on exploring alone, playing alone in unfamiliar environments without adults' eyes on them all the time. So it could actually happen that children could disappear because they were not supervised very closely, or they could get lost. But usually that didn't happen. But it was more about the feeling of not being always watched by adults and always supervised by adults, but actually being in situations where they had to take responsibility for their own actions, their own choices, and finding their way by themselves. Then later, one of my PhD students actually did a project on toddler, like 1 to 3 year olds engagement in risky play, and we added 2 more categories that it was that these toddlers engaged in, and that also became 2 more categories of risky play. So one of them is play with impact. That would be situations where the small children crashed into things repeatedly just for the play of it or for the fun of it. So it would be maybe a 2-year-old on a tricycle bashing into the wall or a fence over and over again just to experience the impact. And the next one, or the second one of these 2, was Vicarious Risk, and that would be small children looking at older children doing something risky and getting the same, almost at least the same thrill as the older ones doing it. So they would be very, very engaged in what was happening, and you could see on their facial expressions that they were actually really, really involved in what was going on. And sometimes this would be, the kind of an introduction to try out the same thing themselves later on. So altogether 8 categories with the 2 extra ones from 2017. So as I said, I've been interested in the children's perspectives, and I wanted to explore with the children why they do take risks in play, because it is a paradox, because they want to, of course, security, they want to be safe, they don't want to be hurt, but still they are stretching the limits and trying out new things in play. And most of them told me that it tickles in my tummy. It's a kind of a bodily and psychological feeling and arousal that happens. they say it's both pleasant and unpleasant at the same time, and most of them actually described it as skummelt artig in Norwegian, and that would be scary funny directly translated. So it's both scary and funny at the same time. And like Martin, he was 5-year-old, said, it's very fun and very scary and all sorts of things, and then I feel both excited and really scared at the same time. That's a lot of feelings going on at the same time. So what they described to me was that they were balancing on the edge between excitement and fear. It was an ambiguous, really ambiguous feeling. But it was because they kind of approached the fear and the anxiety that it actually became exciting enough. So it's kind of the reward of being close to fear that you actually get a high arousal and, this that exciting and thrilling emotional feeling. And through my research, I discovered that children will seek to experience this ambiguous thrill no matter how safe we make playground equipment or the playgrounds for children. This is actually something that they seek on their individual level, of course. So looking at the literature and how we could look for the benefits of risky play. There's obviously an experience that children are seeking, so there's here and now benefits for children that engage in it, obviously, but also could we find some research that would kind of document how this could be beneficial for children's learning and development. And if we look into psychological research, we'll see that there are indications that risky play would have a preventive effect on psychological problems, an antiphobic effect, and also illness in childhood and later in life. So children that engage in risky play would be less prone to have anxiety problems, and they would also work on their self-confidence, and they would learn how learn the limits of their own mastery. So there's evidence that this would be preventive for psychological problems. In terms of physical and motor competence and development, I think it's quite obvious. Doing risky play, using their bodies, children will gain muscle strength, they will get better coordination, they will learn how to balance in a more controlled way, movability, the reaction skills would get higher, and also to know their own body and its in the environment that they live, to know what I am capable of doing and what is safe and what is not safe, and where do I stop because I can't handle this. Spatial orientation skills like the perception of objects, the perception of depth, height, speed, and how to adjust your own movements according to these is also very important learning through risky play. And also, especially concerning rough and tumble play, there's a lot of research that actually shows how this is beneficial for children's social skills. And also review studies from Bersoni et al. Have shown that it has overall positive health effects and not negative effects in terms of injuries, as many people think. So, summing up that, I would say that children's own risk management through learning how to handle risk situations in risky play is one of the best injury prevention things that we could do. So to ensure that children have physical and motor skills, spatial orientation skills, to develop a realistic risk perception and a realistic risk assessment skill on their own, and knowing the environment and themselves better, that would be the best way to work for injury prevention among children. Someday they will go out in the world and they will have to use their skills to handle risks. And if we haven't given them this background, they will not handle it as good and maybe get injured more than they should. So, in the words of Marit Bojesen, a researcher from Norway, she was doing a project on risk prevention among children in injury prevention among children in Norway, and she warned that when all risk is removed from the environment, there is a dangerous border where safety becomes impending and instead contribute in heightening the risk of accidents. So this was what I had time to present for you in this short presentation. So thank you very much for listening and have a great further seminar.